bring on, it's Christian Delacruz, who works as a youth advocate, but as you can tell, thank you for coming on.
Anytime.
Step a
Thank
little
you.
closer on that
Sure.
red tape. As you can tell, he's got the American Red Cross garb on because you were just in Texas.
Absolutely, yeah. So I deployed a couple weeks ago. It was my first time driving all the way down to Texas. I think it's about 2,000 miles, and it was definitely a trek. We lodged twice. I believe we stopped somewhere in Baton Rouge. Then we went out to Hempstead, and then we hit it to Houston, where we stayed at our main headquarters out there on the Southwest Freeway, which is a huge, giant headquarters, and it was like a beehive. You know, people running past you, not sure who's doing what, when. Getting recruited for different tasks. I think while I was down there, I trained to be a DA, which is a damage assessor. And so then I got reassigned from driving the vehicle to being in the community with the folks. And honestly, we went down there and it was complete devastation. Nothing like what I've ever seen before here in Rhode Island. Homes completely destroyed. One woman said she didn't even have a tornado alarm. There was no such thing in her neighborhood, and at 2 a.m. in the morning, she woke up, she thought the garbage men were outside, and it was a tornado ripping through her neighborhood, along with Hurricane Harvey. The floods came as well.
So how did you get involved with the Red Cross?
So, well, I applied, obviously, and went through the trainings and stuff, and it was also, I found out about the Red Cross at a college recruiting event, and it was not about, I think it was 3 weeks later, that Harvey hit Texas.
So you literally signed up for I want to be involved with the Red Cross, and it was before we even knew Harvey was coming along.
Absolutely, yeah. So it was almost destined, you know. That's what I like to think. But they sent out the emails letting everyone know we needed deployments from all over. It was a national deployment, and I made a phone call, and overnight I went in and was deployed.
How many days were you there for total?
14 days.
14 days. Again, as you said, the beehive of activity.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a sense, do you know numbers, how many volunteers total were sort of housed at that facility?
Whew. I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. I know it was in the thousands. They weren't specifically living there. That was, like I said, it was a beehive where everything happened. They had volunteers living in shelters. They had volunteers lodging in different towns and cities in Texas. But there was a lot of people from all over. We also had the Mexican Red Cross come in along with the Israeli Red Cross.
And so you talk about your job having been a damage assessor. So, how many different roles did the Red Cross fill? I mean, folks hear, oh, the Red Cross is there. Do you think people have an understanding of just how much is done by the Red Cross when their boots on the ground?
I don't think so, because we don't document on film everything we're doing, and I think you have to be there to see and witness everything that's going on. We have anything from mental health services to financial, folks that can tell you how to get financial assistance and where from. We have folks that go out there and tell you whether or not your home is a complete loss or if it's livable. We have a lot. And then we have folks that go out and provide food in the community through the emergency response vehicles, which we call ERVs, and feed close to 800 to 900 people per night.
What was the biggest surprise when you went down? You said you've never, driven down there before. To see this, to witness the devastation. From the response and from meeting the folks impacted down there, what kind of really was sort of the big takeaway?
Hope. It's so funny. That's our state motto, right? Hope. But I can definitely tell you that going down there and seeing amidst all the destruction, all the chaos, people still had hope. People were still smiling. They were still loving on their neighbors. We had, you'd see one street completely destroyed, the next street not, and those neighbors would come out and help. You never once saw anyone put their head in their hands and wallow over all their loss. They got up, they were resilient, they had hope for the future, and they were going to rebuild.
And so you were there 14 days. Are Red Cross volunteers are ever longer? Or do they say 2 weeks is all you can probably handle? So we'll take your 2 weeks. We appreciate your 2 weeks. But could you have handled more than 14 days? Was it psychologically taxing?
Psychologically, I think it was okay. I got a little homesick. This is Rhode Island. I got a little homesick. The hour drives were not having it for me. But I can definitely say that you can extend as a volunteer. You can extend to be out there for a month if you want. Of course, they allow you to take days off. We don't want anyone going out in the field who is not physically or emotionally capable to handle themselves. But for me, I had to get back here to go to college and start my classes. I was already 2 weeks in, and I had to get back and start my classes. And it wasn't until on the way back that I actually got invited as I got conditionally accepted to the AmeriCorps FEMA. So there's another thing to look forward to in the future.
What will this entail?
The AmeriCorps?
Yep.
I'll be working directly with the FEMA Corps out there in Vicksburg, Mississippi, and I'll be working side by side FEMA personnel, specifically for Harvey, which, you know, and I'm sure Irma, and I'll be there for 10 months. And, you know, again, we all know about AmeriCorps. They're a great company, organization, should I say. It's considered a federal deployment, and there's a lot of career opportunities, you know, scholarships. And so that'll really, I think, pave the way for something in my future.
So when will that be? When will you be taking off to partake in that? After the semester?
Yeah, well, yeah, obviously.
Okay.
I won't be skipping out of the semester. But I can definitely say I'll be leaving most likely February 13th, heading out there. They pay for all the transportation, so.
Wow. So, you know, volunteering, boots on the ground. What would you tell folks who think, you know, they see this happen and say, hey, I'd love to help. Could I be a volunteer? Should I sign up for the Red Cross? What should folks consider if they're thinking about doing it?
Consider being away from home. You know, I think some people, they're not able to do that. Consider all the things that you're going to see. You're going to see devastation. You're going to see a lot of emotional kinds of stuff. We had one woman pull up and take her puppy out of her car, and her daughter was in the back seat screaming, and hand us her puppy, brand new puppy that she bought, and said, we can't take care of him, and she sped away. That is emotionally heart-wrenching. And so you got to be able to deal with things that are going to really hit you at the core if you're going to want to volunteer for the Red Cross, and you have to also maintain responsibility and professionalism.
Were there other Rhode Islanders with you? Who'd you meet while you were there?
Yeah, so there was one Rhode Islander with me, Tom. I don't remember his last name. Tom is an
Shout out to Tom.
Older gentleman, Tom. But he is way more experienced than I was. He actually got reassigned to Texas City while we were there, so we split apart, which is not uncommon. But then I met folks from Pennsylvania at a stoplight, and from Ohio, and all over the place, and obviously outside of the country I met folks from. So it was really an experience.
So finally, again, you're coming back here. I said, you got to come tell your story, really bring that perspective as a Rhode Islander back here into the studio. If folks, you know, we've been watching it on TV, seeing the pictures, seeing the coverage. What do you really want people here to know? You said, I've been there. You need to know this. Whether it's the reaction to the storm or being prepared here should something happen.
Well, I have to say, one, be prepared. Because we ran into a lot of folks that were in areas that had never been flooded, and they got a flood and had no insurance, no nothing. So be prepared for anything. At the same time, I want to say have hope and keep the faith. You know what I mean? And whatever faith you have, keep it. Because a lot of people in Houston held on to that while their lives were rocked. And so.
Do you think, I mean, it was a natural disaster, it impacted lives, lost lives. But in these instances, does it bring out the best in people when people are trying to help others?
Absolutely. Seeing neighbors come out to help neighbors, strangers helping strangers. It definitely brought people together, and it faded out all the other stories of hate and violence. And I think a good learning tool I brought back with me was, you know, don't wallow over the little things in life. Because when I left, you know, I was upset at some things that in my own life, college, job. But when I went out there, I saw that people had 10 times more resilience than I did in a major catastrophic event. And coming back, that's what I took with me, learning how to just hit the ground running and have hope for your future.
Well, I appreciate your coming in. You're back in school, back in action before taking off for the AmeriCorps FEMA program. What's your course of study? What are you going to be graduating with?
Oh, well, I'll be graduating with a general studies, associate in science. I'll be looking to go on to something a little more in depth with the government and political science, but who knows? Okay,
well, as I said, boots on the ground.
Yeah.
You know, I had reached out to Christian while he was out there. Actually, you're just leaving to come back, and I said, "Oh, Skype in," and he said, "I'm going to be back. Why don't I come into the studio here?" Again, when we hear, when we see, when we read about what goes on in these disaster areas, to hear from a young Rhode Islander who's been out there helping folks, I appreciate you coming back and giving us that that perspective from having seen what happened. So Christian, I'm sure we'll talk soon.
Thank you so
Wish
much.
you the best at the beginning of the school year. Hopefully we'll catch you before you take off for your FEMA position, but thank you for all that you've done.
Thank you.
Okay,
Have a
Christian
good-
Delacruz, we'll let you go. As I said, wanted to get in touch with Christian when I saw that he was in Texas with the Red Cross, talking about his own personal experience being down there for 14 days. Just let us know he's going to be back in school for a little bit before he does the AmeriCorps FEMA program down south as well. So a young Rhode Islander trying to do good around the country, appreciate his service. So Christian, thank you for coming.